Well, here we are again, everybody. Hi, it's Sandra Miller, and this is actually the last module of our Fueled program. So we'll be covering things that relate to the E and the D in Fueled. And those are going to be exercise, dehydration, detoxification, digestion, and a little bit more on DHA. But before I go into that, let's just briefly go over what we've already covered in the past. So we talked about the fastest way to fat loss and picking up your metabolism are fats and fasting. And you won't even be able to fathom the fasting part until you're actually eating more fats for a little while. So hopefully you're on your way, you're starting. Again, reach out to me if you have any questions. Then we looked at the U in Fueled, which was the importance of light and light to the retina, and how UVA and UVB light have many, many different roles in the body, from helping us to create vitamin D from cholesterol to actually cell signaling. So very important process. Then we talked about earthing and grounding, EMFs, and light and electron therapy, eating an electron-rich diet, and why that's important. We then covered in the L of Fuel the role of leptin, which has so many far-reaching uses in the body. Leptin signals hormones and neurotransmitters, and a cascade of reactions occur. If our leptin is off, those reactions are not so good. And if it's on, then we're rewarded with a healthy metabolism and fat loss. And so tonight, again, we are going to be covering dehydration, detox, exercise, and digestion. So let's jump right into the exercise portion of things. And I know I saved that for last. I was kind of mean, right? But I figured that the other things have to really be put in an order of importance. And not that I'm saying exercise isn't important, but there are other things that are almost important, if not more important. So we kind of covered those first. So I know everybody always asks me, what kind of exercise is the best? How much cardio should I do? What types of strength exercises should I do? Is yoga better than Pilates? I mean, I get a whole bunch of questions on exercise. So let's talk about that for a minute. First, let me kind of get aside a couple of the myths about exercise. Yes, it is important. It's important for healthy circulation. It's important for turning on genes. It's important for hormone responses. And it's important for a lot of things. But the type of exercise that we do is extremely important. And most of us who do exercise are getting too much of the wrong kind. So let's talk about that. So when I say the wrong kind, what am I talking about? Well, I know that, as an exerciser myself, pretty heavy exerciser too, right up until about 4 or 5 years ago when I developed some issues and I'm not able to do all the things I was able to do before, it would be not uncommon for me to walk 7 miles home from work and then still do a 6 or a 7 mile walk afterwards for my health. And in between all of that, I would often do sit-ups and push-ups and all of those other types of exercises. So I did a lot of exercise, and I was an exercise instructor. So there were times when I had to do one class and then immediately after something like a spinning class, go teach a kickboxing class or a body pump class. So I was really no stranger to high-intensity cardiovascular exercise. Now, when I was doing that exercise, I was actually about 13 pounds heavier than I am now. I mean, there are 2 reasons for that. I did lose a lot of muscle not doing as much of that strength training. But I also lost more body fat when I cut back on my exercise program than when I was exercising at that crazy intensity for all of those years. And I also did not do my health a favor. When we exercise, we increase free radicals. So we talked about free radicals earlier in one of our trainings and how we need to replace those electrons so that it squelches the fire of that inflammation. Well, Exercise can be good, but it has its dark side. Some exercise is good, but more is not better, not when it comes to cardiovascular exercise. Think of this. If you were like a caveman or a cave woman, let's just say, if you were to run from a tiger, it would only be for a short distance. We didn't run marathons. We really actually weren't even quite built for that. Although the human body is capable of a lot of things, there are some things that benefit us and some things that actually lead to poor health. Too much cardio is one of them. Oftentimes, I have seen people exercise themselves into a frenzy. Runners who will not stop running despite being bandaged up. Everything is bandaged from their hip to their knee, but they're still going to run their 5 miles. And frankly, I don't quite get that. Because if something is not beneficial to my health, I stop doing it. And that is not beneficial to anybody's health when we're over-exercising to the point that we're working through pain or injury. So there's always other ways, and I'm going to help you with maybe some better ways that you hadn't thought of that are actually more effective than what you might be doing. So it's time to get off the treadmill. It's time to stop running marathons and triathlons and all of those things and crossfitting yourself to death and start doing smart exercise. Smarter, not harder. So before we start getting really into exercise, I want to talk about fuel for exercise for a minute. So previously, a lot of athletes and people in the fitness arena thought that glucose was the be-all, end-all, and that really all you needed was glucose. It was absolutely necessary to get energy to fuel your workout, and I'm here to tell you that that is absolutely not true. If you don't believe what I tell you, you are more than welcome to go onto Google and search out ketones and endurance exercise or anything to that nature. What you're going to find is that ketones are so much better than glucose when it comes to a source of fuel. Now, first of all, if anybody knows anything about calories and carbohydrates, protein, and fats and how many calories they yield, let me just give you a brief on that. So basically, carbohydrates are about 4 calories per gram, whereas fats are about 9. So they're twice as fuel dense as carbohydrates. So right then and there, even a simple-minded person could see that you get a higher yield of energy from fats than you do from carbohydrates, but you also get less toxic waste. When we burn glucose, it's a very dirty process. It leaves behind something we've already talked about, which is glycation or advanced glycation end products, and that's the beginning of those fires of inflammation. And if you can't get enough electrons in the body to quench that, and you're continuing to run and over-exercise, then soon you will be in a very poor state of health for a fit person. And honestly, the more cardiovascular exercise we do, the less our heart gets trained. The best type of exercise is the one that you will do. And honestly, some of the best types of exercises in the world are ones that include body weight with short bursts of cardio in between. Now, one of my favorite workouts, one that I really can't do very well because of my injuries, I can do some of the exercises but not all, but if I had my druthers, I would probably only do TRX. I love the TRX. I love body weight exercise. It makes my whole body feel alive and I feel accomplished. Now, I'm a pretty good distance person, so I'm a pretty good endurance person. Anyway, I'm an endurance-based person. And some people will do better with one form of exercise than others. But I want to give you some guidelines to keep it safe. We don't want to be trying to build upon our health and break it down just as quickly with too much exercise. So we're causing a lot of damage that is just really hard to recover from. And not to mention, injury-wise, we put ourselves at risk for injury when we overdo things. So it's all about being smart about it so that you can do it until you're 90. If you don't see your exercise regimen lasting you, it's time to rethink what you're doing. So like I said, ketones are better than glucose as far as a source of fuel. Now, if you choose to undertake a ketogenic diet, it will take several weeks before your performance will start to get on track, and probably 3 to 6 before it becomes ideal. And that's because a person needs to get keto adapted. So unless you're drinking an exogenous ketone product, and I'm going to be sharing one of those with you in the future, I take it myself. It's great for hunger and cravings. It's going to help fuel you for exercise and get you using those ketones quicker. So it can be a really great tool for a lot of things, but I will save that for that presentation. But just want to put that in your mind, that ketones are so much better than glucose because they yield more energy. You will use less oxygen when you're using ketones for fuel and get a higher output. Now, who doesn't want that? If there's anybody out there that wants that, keep eating sugar and fuel your workouts with sugar, and you'll always have inadequate recovery and an inadequate fuel source. That's really all I can say about that. Now, ketones are also anabolic. What does anabolic mean? Well, that means they are muscle sparing. So they help us keep our muscle. Anybody who runs distance, their muscle begins to break down, and that is catabolic. We don't want that if we're exercising, because every pound of muscle we had burns so many more calories than every pound of fat we have. And most of us here today are trying to burn fat. So if you're trying to burn fat, more body weight exercise interspersed with bouts of short cardio, like a high intensity interval workout program, would be fantastic. You can find them anywhere on the internet. You can, there will be varied levels of that, but it's the majority of body weight exercise with maybe a burst or a sprint on a bike or a run or something to that effect. So high intensity interval training. Now, when you do that right, it shouldn't take you much more than 20 minutes to 30 minutes tops to do your entire workout. And I know that might sound crazy to people that run 5 miles, but it is a much better way to get fit. It is much less severe on the body. It's going to cause less injury. It's going to give you some variety rather than just running, because running only works certain muscles. So overall, it gets you fitter. Now, some other things that we can do to increase fat burning, especially for men, is try exercising in a fasted state in the morning or in the early evening before dinner or something to that effect. Typically, it would be in the morning before you have your first meal if you're doing good with that intermittent fasting and you're pushing your first meal till 11 or 12 o'clock-ish. Even if it's 10:30, that's still a really good time to do that. There are only a few times when that would not be the recommendation. I will not go into those here, but I'm just going to say, for healthy people, this should be a great strategy. If you have adrenal fatigue and you know you have adrenal issues, then it may not be the best to do that in a fasted state. Now, fats and proteins are the best macronutrients to get into your body post-workout. Glucose is absolutely the worst. It is not going to fuel your muscles. It is not anabolic. It's going to spike your insulin. It's going to cause inflammation, and it's just not smart. It's much smarter to actually work off of fats and proteins, because those are going to give your body what they need to rebuild, repair, and feel amazing. Now, exercising less can be really hard for some people. Trust me, the first time I really realized that I needed to cut back my exercise for my health, it was hard. I mean, I've tried to tell my runners, don't run so much, and I just get it. It doesn't really work well. You have to see a benefit. I have seen a benefit because I was someone who was starting to get claudication in the backs of my legs and having circulation problems when I was an athlete. So that was caused by my low-fat diet and too much cardio. So really heed the warnings in the science. That is old, outdated information. Bring yourself into this century, embrace it, and your health and your fitness level will thank you for it. So when I say exercise less, I also mean less days of the week. There is no need to run or work out every single day of the week. Rest is good because that's where all the really good things happen. So if you're doing high intensity interval training, you only have to exercise. Probably twice a week would be ideal. Some people, because they feel a little funny with only twice, would do it 3 times. But just make sure you're working all the areas of your body, upper, lower, everything, extension, flexion, everything. And you'll get a very well-rounded workout. You'll burn a lot of calories, and your body will look and feel so much better because it will be balanced and healthy. So now, don't be a sugar burner. Be a fat burner and really come into this century with your thought process of what you thought was the best way to do things. Just like 5 to 6 small meals is old and outdated, too much cardio is old and outdated. And it's really, really going to benefit you if you just give it a try, and I promise that. So how much exercise is okay? Well, it depends on what you're doing. If you're doing taekwondo, tai chi, or something to that effect, maybe a little bit of just body weight stuff, you could probably do it most days of the week. That wouldn't be so bad. But if you're doing a high intensity type of workout, or if you're doing a CrossFit workout 1 or 2 times a week, 1 or 2 times a week is really adequate for that, as long as you're doing other things that are supportive, like stretching, anything like that that's going to be beneficial. Fitness has many components, and it's not about just how fast we can run in how many minutes, okay? If you keep doing what you did, you will keep getting what you got. I cannot tell you how many of my clients will say, well, you know, I was exercising 3 days a week for an hour. Now I have to do 4 days a week for an hour. Well, if it didn't do you good the last 7 times that you did it, there's got to be something in our brains that says, okay, let's stop the insanity and try something different. Try working out maybe only 3 times in a week, making 2 of those sessions cardio and adding that strength training or another component 3 days out of the week, and see what that gets you. Give it a few weeks to a month because things take time to show, but give your body a break and really, shake it up. Throw in a plyometric workout. If you don't know what that is, go and Google that. You can go to my ab workout that's on my YouTube channel and do some killer ab work that doesn't involve cranking out a million sit-ups, because we really shouldn't be doing that. That is not a real beneficial exercise, but you can learn what is if you go on Biohacking Wellness YouTube and type in trainer secrets to great abs, how to hack your abs. But check that out. It's one of the very first videos that I posted. It's a couple of segments long, but at the end I do the entire workout right there with you so you can see what it looks like. So don't forget strength training, especially if you're diabetic. You should be doing more strength training than cardio, because that's how glucose or excess glucose gets used. So it's one of the more beneficial exercises. Maybe if you're, again, working out 3 times, you do 3 strength sessions and add cardio to every other one, or something to that effect. Play around with it, see what works for you, write down your results and the effects you got, and go back and see what needs to change the next time. So when is the best time to exercise? Well, like I said, AM may not be the best time when you're fasting if you have adrenal issues, but otherwise that would be a great time. It kind of sets the tone for the whole entire day. And we really want to burn fat, so a lower key exercise for a longer duration could work well also. After 4 p.m. can also be a good time for people. Now, there are some people who don't do well with exercise in the evening. It keeps them awake. Honestly, for me, it helps all my muscles relax and I sleep like a baby. Add muscle confusion. Throw on a workout you've never done before and just do the best you can with it for 20 minutes. It's going to really, really help throw that muscle confusion in. When the body gets too used to something, it stagnates. We don't want to stagnate. We want to grow. Do your exercise when you feel like doing it, because you're more likely to keep on a routine if you just feel like it and don't force yourself to do it. So there really are no risks of timing, with the exception of the fact that if you do it at night, it might keep some people awake.